I want to read from page 143. This is a point that I keep on making. You say, foreign policy mavens do debate the pros and cons of specific military actions, such as the merits of intervention in Syria's civil war, but not the basic right of the United States to use force wherever and whenever it wishes. Now, I'm not a huge Noam Chomsky fan, but nevertheless, I think he is right when he says that what an establishment like the foreign policy establishment wants is for the debate to be kept fairly narrow. So we're going to debate which way to carry out this ill-considered policy is the better one, as opposed to whether the policy should be carried out in the first place. And that's another major constraint, is that when I turn on the TV, I don't hear people shouting back and forth about fundamental questions. In fact, the example I've given the most is back in 2008, when we were down to just 4 candidates left for the Republicans after it started off at who knows how many. And it was Ron Paul, Mike Huckabee, and then Romney and McCain. And it was the final debate. And Romney and McCain dominated the debate. And the debate consisted of utter trivialities about who wanted to deploy more forces where, at what moment. And at no time did they ask any fundamental questions. And I thought, what kind of a Alice through the looking glass am I watching here?
That's exactly right. I mean, there's a chapter which describes the foreign policy establishment at some length and talks about the sort of consensus set of beliefs. And as I said, and as the quotation you read suggests, it's not that there are not occasional disagreements over tactical issues. Sometimes the debate is simply how much force to use, for example, not whether or not to use it at all. But there's an awful lot of things that just aren't questioned. I mean, I mentioned the American commitment to NATO. You could talk about the American relationship with Israel, the desirability of trying to spread democracy around the world, the way we think about countries like Russia or China. If you're in the foreign policy establishment, nuclear proliferation is a very bad thing. But of course, our nuclear weapons are absolutely indispensable. And the central theme in all of this is that American leadership is absolutely indispensable. We are, the indispensable nation that must be in charge in as many places as possible. And one of the things I show is I look at 3 different task force reports that were produced by various think tanks or groups in the foreign policy establishment over a 15-year period, beginning in 2006, running up to 2018. And these are 3 separate task forces. They are all bipartisan, so Republicans and Democrats. They all feature numerous really credentialed VIP, bold-faced names from the foreign policy world. And they're written in rather different circumstances. The first one written before the financial crisis, and in fact, before the Iraq war has really gone south on us. The latter 2 written afterwards, one of them written after the emergence of ISIS. If you look at these 3 reports, the Princeton Project on National Security, the Project for a United and Strong America, and the CNAS report Extending American Power, you look at all of these reports, they're basically identical. They're interchangeable. They even use some of the same rhetoric. So no matter what the circumstances the country's in, what its economy's like, what's happening in different parts of the world, the answer is always the same. The United States needs to be engaged almost everywhere, needs to be promoting democracy, markets, rule of law almost everywhere, and basically needs to be in charge. And that's a recipe, I think, for perennial overcommitment. And it also ends up getting us into projects that we simply don't know how to complete and haven't succeeded in doing.
The Tom Woods Show, episode 1358.